Hi there, I'm Machine Pun Kelly, aka MPK. Today I want to talk about the US-Canada trade war. Why is it happening, and who is to blame? Let's dive in. The trade war between the United States and Canada, which commenced in February 2025, represents a significant escalation in bilateral economic relations driven by U.S. tariff policies under President Donald Trump. This conflict, rooted in a mix of economic, security, and political motivations, has far-reaching consequences for both nations, given their status as major trading partners under agreements like the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA. Tariff imposition and retaliation. On February 1, 2025, President Trump signed orders imposing near-universal tariffs on Canadian goods entering the U.S., with a 25% tariff on most imports and a 10% rate on oil and energy products. These tariffs took effect on March 4, 2025, following a one-month delay negotiated on February 3, 2025. In response, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced immediate retaliatory tariffs of 25% on $20.6 billion of U.S. exports, with plans to expand to $106 billion after 3 weeks if the situation worsened. The tariff measures have specific exemptions, such as a one-month delay for automobiles and parts under the Canada-USA-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA, but non-CUSMA energy products, including some oil and critical minerals, remain subject to the 10% tariff. This escalation has intensified the trade dispute, with both sides implementing measures that disrupt traditional trade flows. The U.S. motivations for imposing tariffs are multifaceted. A primary goal is to reduce the U.S. trade deficit with Canada, reported at $55 billion as of November 2024, reflecting broader economic strategy under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, marking its first use for tariffs. A second issue is border security, with the U.S. pressuring Canada to enhance measures against illegal immigration, noting 23,000 apprehensions from Canada in 2024. Another allegation is illegal drug smuggling, particularly fentanyl, with the U.S. citing that 0.2% of it comes over the border from Canada. Each of these allegations falls apart under closer scrutiny, though. The U.S.-Canada trade deficit is only because of oil. In fact, if you look at non-oil products, the U.S. actually has a trade surplus with Canada. And with 0.2% of the fentanyl trade and less than 2% of apprehensions, the security issues are frivolous. A second allegation is it is to combat illegal drug smuggling, particularly fentanyl, with the U.S. citing that 98% of fentanyl originates from Mexico and 0.2% from Canada. Obviously, 0.2% is not worth starting a trade war over. Finally, on the charge that Canada is not doing a good enough on border security is flaccid on two levels. First, 23,000 apprehensions on the longest unguarded border in the world is not very many. Second, Canada's job is to keep illegal immigrants from entering Canada, not leaving it. It's the U.S.'s job of border security to keep immigrants out of the U.S. There is a vague allegation that Canada profited unfairly from trade, with Trump making claims of deficits up to $200 billion. There is nothing to substantiate these allegations, and they appear to be completely made-up numbers. In fact, it doesn't appear that Canada did anything to provoke a trade war. This actually just seems more like Donald Trump throwing a tantrum. Canadian response and negotiations. Canada's response has been swift and retaliatory, with Trudeau emphasizing the need to protect Canadian interests. The initial tariffs targeted U.S. exports, and negotiations led to a one-month delay, agreed upon on February 3, 2025, one day before the tariffs were set to take effect, with both sides agreeing to increase border security. However, as of March 31, 2025, the tariffs are in effect, and Trudeau has indicated that the trade war may persist for the foreseeable future, with Canada's retaliatory measures remaining in place. Economic and social implications. The trade war has significant economic ramifications, as evidenced by reports on small businesses and broader economic forecasts. For instance, Dainty Foods, a Canadian rice mill, faces a 25% increase in import costs for U.S. rice and potential higher export costs, threatening its operations and plans for expansion into Detroit. The OECD predicts that Trump's tariff hikes will drag down growth in Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., driving up inflation and potentially leading to a generalized trade shock that could cost more than the tariffs generate in revenue. In conclusion, this trade war is one that didn't have to happen, but is still ongoing over reasons entirely invented by one man, but which will affect millions of people across the two countries. Once again, I'm Machine Pun Kelly, aka MPK, and thanks for watching. If you learned something, don't forget to hit like and subscribe.